type in?
So go ahead. I accidentally had us muted. So
Okay. So we've been doing several processes over the last few weeks, and so I thought I'd open this up to questions and answers for this first session. And you can ask about things that we've been doing, or if there's other things that are on your mind, you can go ahead and fire away. Unmute yourself or type in.
and I'll make it so it's easy for you. Yeah, it's easy if you want to type in any of your questions, or you can just unmute yourself or raise your hand, however works for you. Yeah, go ahead, Linda.
Hey, Miss Linda.
Hey, you always throw us a curveball when you
I
say
know.
Lin-
I
uh,
even had to warn Samantha. I was like, okay, heads up. It'll be Q&A time today. Be prepared. So,
So I have a question about the surrounding ourselves with the white light.
yes.
When we do that, I have a sense of not only being surrounded by it, but infused with it, and a sense of even being the light.
I think that's very perceptive. The idea of like in our affirmation with Astara, I'm surrounded by the white light, only good comes to me, only good goes from me. Really what you're kind of affirming is, in the pineal gland is mental permanent autumn. We call it the inner eye, the blue pearl. And this is how we communicate with the higher soul or our higher nature, but it's also how light enters the body. And so part of what you're doing is you're affirming this, and it's kind of like you're getting the idea into the intellectual mind. It's already there, but the mind, especially the intellectual mind, kind of puts things in categories or breaks things up into pieces. And so, in a way, the intellectual mind, which is very potent, it has the idea that there's some sort of separation. The intuitive mind, when it starts to kick in, we begin to kind of experience more of this inner eye or this blue pearl, this processing center for the soul. And so, you know, the more that we bring a kind of stillness to the nervous system, the more that we can kind of, I don't want to say reprogram, but reinforce like more truth. And the thing with the nervous system is we go through these ideas of our traumas and our behavior patterns and just our repetitive patterns, be it a pain pattern or just whatever kind of repetitive loop that we might have. I'd call them thought loops is probably the best way to say it. These are very much in the intellect, but they're also in our body, in our physiology. And, as we kind of go through and regulate them, we begin to experience more of like our higher emotional capacity. Like I'd say, we kind of have to work through the maze of our physical body, be it the emotions and even the thought processes, to really truly begin to activate the heart. And, a lot of it is these like thought patterns and these repetitions and things. And so the more that we calm down the body, the more that we can reinforce this truth into the nervous system, because it's like how we've talked about it before, the the mind has the story of the things that happened, the traumas, the past events of why we do this and why we don't do that, and all those horrible things that happened and the good things that we would love to keep experiencing, but maybe time goes on and they go away or we outgrow them or whatever it is, right? And so the more that the nervous system is able to reach like a calmer state, it's part of like what we do when we feel things in the body, or we do Lama yoga, or we do some of our meditations, when we work with angels. The more that affirmation kind of is reinforcing something in the nervous system where, you know, the mind has the story, but the body just knows, I don't feel safe, I didn't feel secure, things feel chaotic, we had to do crazy things to get through this situation. Like it doesn't have the story. And so, we walk away from situations and mentally we go, oh, that boy, that was crazy. The body just thinks it's just always going to happen. Right. And so sometimes we have tension in our body and reactions in our body that are maybe from 20 or 30 years ago. Like it doesn't necessarily mean that it's about things that are happening right now. And so, that idea of like if we just have a little bit of calmness and stillness and we kind of affirm, like, I'm surrounded by the pure white light, we're re-educating the nervous system to go like, oh, yeah, we are surrounded by light. It's a little bit safe right now. Like it's like it's okay. We don't have the chaos that we did before. And even that only good comes from me is reaffirming that, like, the heart being the center of like generating goodness or doing kind acts, or just even identifying the light within me and then the light within you and the environment, and that, there's always the potential of light coming from other people and not always just going to our conditioned response that people are out to hurt us, people are out to take advantage of us. And some people are, but that we can come to it like by an evaluation rather than a reaction, right? And so as you kind of go deeper, like your perception is true, like that idea of you're being surrounded by pure white light, that's a mental image, but really you're surrounded by white light because you're filled with white light. It's not that it's something separate. You are being filled with light because it's coming in through the pineal gland and the mental permanent atom and the inner eye, whatever you want to call it. And yes, we're surrounded by it, but I would say even more so that it's not that we're just surrounded by a ball of light. We're really swimming in an ocean of light. Like we're in this big, huge, like ocean of light that is really beyond the mind's comprehension. But intellectually, we have kind of separated ourselves. And, we don't do it by choice. Like it's just the nature of the intellect. And so even if you look at the idea of the four directions in various traditions, most times the four directions start with the West. And the West, is where the setting sun is. You're looking at the direction where the sun is going down. And really what that symbolizes is the quieting of the intellectual mind and the awakening of like observation or awareness or the intuitive mind. And so as you are starting to like kind of quiet the intellect, we still need intellect. It's not that it's bad, it's just that it's a little bit more bossy than it should be. It's a micromanager and it does things that are really, doesn't want to let go of. And as we start to calm that down, the perceptions are like what you said, I'm filled with light. These other people, even though they might be obnoxious, also have a light within them that if we connect the light, it might even shift their behavior. It might even shift how they act or behave, or might even shift how they think or open them up to a deeper level of intuition or awareness or whatever that might be. And so, the affirmation is kind of like a good starting place for the nervous system and for the mind, and the idea of the mind to get a hold of that. But the deeper level truth is what you're perceiving. Like, I'm filled with light, I'm surrounded by light, I'm swimming in light. You know, it's really a move from identifying with the form, which is an intellectual process, because if you think, the intellect makes everything a thing and sticks it on a shelf. So it's always identifying with the form. And if we're going to end our suffering, or if we're going to heal, there has to be some sort of shift of always identifying with the form, and at least for a little bit of time, identifying with the essence, which is more of the soul. And so once we start to have those little experiences of the soul, then it shifts the form, it shifts how we think. Because the form can even be your opinions, your thoughts, your behavior patterns, your emotional patterns, the flow of emotion that goes through you that are maybe processed or unprocessed. And so you'll notice, like, at least for myself, like, something might be a little bit irritating, and I get completely distracted, and I go and I have to observe something, and then I'm like, okay, I took care of that, and then I come back and I look at that thing that might be a little bit upsetting to me, and my perspective is very different. The situation didn't change, but my identification with the form of that situation is shifted and changed. And so that idea of, being surrounded by the white light is really kind of an embracing of essence on some level in some way. And the more that I think we affirm it, and the more that we cultivate it, and the more that we observe it, there's like these layers of, like you're having, your perceptions and realizations. I am the light. The light's coming through me. Like, I'm a vessel of light. I'm always surrounded by light. I don't just have to affirm it. It's always happening, and it's much bigger than just the ball. Like, I'm swimming in this ocean of light, because divine intelligence is the play between light and form, and how the light, really helps the form to evolve and to spiritualize and to become like a better version of itself. And, within us, there is, the idea of the elements from an energetic point of view. And as we keep tapping into the perception of the light, we even keep evolving those building blocks that make up our body, our emotion, our thoughts, our opinions, even the life itself. And so I would say that is a great perception on your part.
Okay, thank you. So would it be useful to be placing our awareness on the pineal gland as we do that affirmation?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I would say, you could do it different ways. Putting your awareness on the, pineal. You could do the materialization breath. You could do lama yoga. You could do, that practice where we even go through and we just like, okay, I'm going to have my awareness on the brain, and then sink a little deeper into the brain, and sink a little deeper into the brain, and keep relaxing into the brain, because it's like a soft way of getting your awareness to the pineal and in that area. The work with angels is also a very good way, because really, for us to truly be able to invoke an angel, that blue pearl, that inner eye, has to be kind of stimulated. And sometimes even just the invoking of the angel will start to stimulate that area, for it to really truly happen. And so that's why we use, like, different techniques, and both according to um Kutumi, and then also Holy Master Joel Kuhl, one of the things that they say is that if you want to develop intuition, and intuition being the gateway to the soul, to the higher nature, to the higher realms, to truth, whatever that might be, is you look at symbols. It's not words, it's not facts, it's not the accumulation of details. You look at symbols and symbolism. And even when you look at the idea of visualizing a ball of light, in a way, it's a kind of symbol. And you start off with that process being very intellectual about it. Like, okay, the light's in front of me, the light's behind me, it's on my left, it's on my right, it's above me, it's below me. I start laughing because I'm like, my intellectual mind is like, but how far above my head? How far below my feet? Like, what's the density of the light? What's the color of the light? Like, the intellect will start grinding on all kinds of details. But really, what you're trying to do is, even in the visualization of that ball of light, you are moving from intellect to intuition because you're starting to look at something more in a symbolic way, like in a metaphoric way, rather than a literal way. And so, you know, anything you do after that becomes an enhancement. So, your awareness on the blue pearl, your awareness doing the materialization breath, which highly activates the blue pearl. Lama yoga highly activates the blue pearl. Even that meditation where we go from the back heart to the navel to the brain or to the crown, also very activating to the blue pearl. Because at first, with like going into the blue pearl, we like, okay, let's visit the brain, let's go to the pineal, excuse me, let's go to where the blue pearl is, and we might have our experiences, and then they kind of float away a little bit. We might hold on to some of it, but they kind of float away. And so you look at the idea of the mind, and you have the intellect and the intuition very opposed to each other. Like, they are very different from each other. Yet they're in your head, and you're having to harmonize these two things. And then you look at the idea of the heart. And the heart, like when we do that journey into the heart, where we're going to the heart seed, we go deeper and deeper, towards the spine. And as we go deeper into that, we eventually hit the physical permanent atom, or the heart seed, and we have very different experiences. We have the experience of experiencing things that are in opposition, but both are true. Like, like my favorite one was, somebody said, when they get to that spot, I feel like I'm in a room, but it has no walls, right? And so the idea of going into the heart is both intellect and intuition both exist there. Like, they're not in opposition. They are both like fully there. And so that idea of that we are kind of guided by the heart, or we're led by the heart, or the heart is what manifests the goodness, or the good, the things in our lives. It is, the more that that heart becomes activated, the more that these two aspects are balanced. But for there to be a deeper level of activation of that blue pearl, that mental permanent seed or atom, that inner eye, we can stimulate it, but for it to last, there has to be a significant amount of heart energy that moves up to the brain, right? And so the practice of doing the back heart to the navel to the crown. Moving energy from the front heart is helpful. But I would say the energy that is really transformative to the brain and has a deeper activation of the mental permanent atom is the back heart, the area between the shoulder blades. And as that energy moves up and begins to impact the brain, it really helps us to let go of our thoughts and our resistances and our opinions and the stuff from other people. And, it kind of cleans house a little bit. And it allows for a much easier activation of the mental permanent atom or the inner eye. And not only would I say an easier activation, I would say that it would stimulate a more spontaneous activation where you don't even really have to be meditating. It begins to happen. And like in the deeper practices, there's not just going into the mental permanent atom, but there's also like a splitting of that atom, where these pieces of the mind like kind of split off and function independently. Where for a while it's kind of like we have animal brain, like they're all kind of fused, you know, like our intellect, our intuition, our instinct, they're all kind of fused together. They don't really function super independently. But as we go through and we split that atom, right? We have intellect that can function. We have intuition that can function, kind of separately and develop separately. And then we have our instinctive and our emotional components that also kind of develop. And in the separation, there is greater activity in each of those pieces. And in that greater activity of each of those pieces, there's an emergence of something much greater than just the pieces, greater than intellect, greater than intuition, greater than the sense of oneness. And that is how we begin to really experience those higher realms. And in that, there is a deeper level of activation of the heart, which also in a way is a paradox. Like it's like, okay, we got to get all these things together and activate the heart so that we can do all these things separately, have this experience, and then we can activate the heart. Like it's this kind of weird like predicament, and it's a little bit of like you just kind of keep going back and forth between all the pieces. You keep working all the pieces and you start having a little bit more of an experience and a little more of an experience and a little more of an experience. And then eventually it starts to get bigger. And then at some point, there is like a tipping point where all of a sudden it's like, like I hit the bigger activation of the heart, right? Which is really meaning we're kind of transcending the effects of the body. Like we work through lower emotions and we work through like the instincts and we work through like our lower mental activities and how we look at things intellectually and even the trappings of intuition, because even the idea of intuition where we go, oh, I see colors or I see the energy around a person. That's good, but that's still not the point. There's something much greater past that. And it's very easy to get caught or ensnared in like, oh, look at all these things that I can see. Because really it's about being able to put your attention on something and have it like blossom like a lotus or like a flower. Like, even the idea of the soul or even an idea. Like, when you look at somebody who's a genius and they break through something, a lot of times they put their awareness on something and something opens up and blossoms up to them. It's not an accumulation of information. And if you look at so many practices and these days, it's a lot of like just firing off information and like, okay, let's accumulate this and this does this and this does that. And it's a lot of like academic knowledge, but the academic knowledge doesn't facilitate the blossoming of these aspects in our greater awareness. Beyond the senses, it's a lot like picking flowers. Like, oh, I'm going through the garden. What flower would I like to pick? What flower do I want to have blossom up in front of me? Where intellect just kind of labels the flowers and goes, yeah, 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 there's these, and these, and throws it up on the shelf. But when you're in deeper intuition, it's almost like you're in the garden and you're walking through the garden and you're like, okay, what would I like to pick today? What kind of information, what kind of experience would I like to pick? And as I pick it, I put my awareness on it. How is it going to bloom? How is it going to blossom?
Wonderful. Thank you very
Mm.
much.
You're so welcome.
So we have Dan's hand raised. We have 2 questions in chats.
But we got to jump over to the next study group. So how about we'll jump over to the next study group? Sorry, we have to do it this way, but we'll do that and we'll continue with questions.